Our events, we invite someone who is a veteran to say a few words, to speak from their perspective, from your perspective. And today we're honored to have Tucker Smallwood as our honored guest to be the keynote speaker for today's lunch. Tucker Smallwood was commissioned an Army infantry officer in June of 1968. He served as a TAC officer at the Fort Benning, Georgia for 6 months, then attended Benning's Jump School, Military Assistant Training Advisor, otherwise known as MATA, at Fort Bragg's JFK Special Warfare Center and Vietnamese Language School at Fort Bliss, Texas. He commanded MAT 36, a 5-man Army advisory team to Vietnamese regional force troops in 1969. After recovering from his injuries at Walter Reed, he taught patrolling, ambush, escape, and evasion training to engineer OCS candidates at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Then resigned his commission in 1970 and moved to New York City to study acting. For the past 38 years, he worked on and off Broadway in more than 40 theatrical productions, appeared in more than 30 feature films, along with hundreds of hours of episodic television. He is the author and narrator of the book Return to Eden, an anthology of essays recounting his experiences as an Army advisor, how his life as an artist was affected by PTSD, and his return to Vietnam in 2004. He is also an accomplished blues guitarist, singer, and a member of Rogue Machine, a theater group in Los Angeles. For 6 months in 2010-11, he performed for Rogue Machine in the Sunset Limited by Cormac McCarthy. Public performances began May 26, 2012 for Where the Great Ones Run at Rogue Machine. Tucker Smallwood is an actor, he's a gentleman, but more importantly to all of us, he's a hero. Let's welcome to the podium Tucker Smallwood.
Guests, fellow veterans, Councilman and Congressman-elect Cardenas, when Lieutenant Olivia Chavez invited me to speak before you and she told me who was hosting this event, I got a very good feeling, because 43 years ago, on an operating table in Saigon, the surgeon who brought me back to life was Dr. Cesar Cardenas. Perhaps a distant relative. Accepting responsibility for the consequences of veteran service to America. This is the challenge I want to engage today. Often finding the answer to problems begins with posing the right question. What is our obligation to fellow citizens that have served their country and returned home with profound needs? And what can I do to help? The mandate of the Veterans Administration comes from Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address: to care for him that shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. We should reword that, because today both men and women serve in harm's way. Over the centuries, we've given many names to one result of this service. We once called it soldier's heart, shell shock, combat fatigue. Lately we call it post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. If we continue to send our children off to war, there will probably be more names, but all will describe the same consequences of walking through the killing fields. Sleeplessness, irritability, hypervigilance, substance abuse, depression, self-destructiveness, anxiety, panic attacks, and many other symptoms. Warfare continues to evolve. Weapons change. Adversaries change, as do tactics and politics. And yet there is something timeless and unchanging about combat. It affects different people differently, but it affects them all. Many veterans recover and manage to resolve their inner conflicts, able to resume their lives. Many others remain troubled by what they've seen and done and endured. In recent years, for various reasons, our soldiers have been deployed and redeployed and redeployed. Depending upon their job, once is quite often enough to traumatize. Imagine serving, coming home, and returning over and over. Their instincts at home don't work on the job, and their instincts on the job don't work at home. And so we have this tragic statistic. Every day, 18 veterans take their lives. 7 days a week. Some couldn't admit to being troubled. Some couldn't accept help. Some couldn't find help. So they chose to end their pain. Now, we've made amazing progress in dealing with physical injuries. War has always advanced medical science. We can get our casualties to care quickly. We have better surgical techniques. We continue to improve prosthetics. We don't have a shortage of artificial arms and legs. And that's a good thing, because modern warfare is brutally efficient when it comes to crippling soldiers. What we have is a population of emotionally wounded veterans and a shortage of caregivers. 35% of veterans out processing today admit to having issues from their service. There are surely more unable or unwilling to admit that. Each veteran has a family. Parents, children, siblings, friends, co-workers, neighbors. Each of those lives are affected too. Each veteran is like the tip of an iceberg. There is so much more beneath the surface. Soldiers do not make policy. They don't get to vote on their missions. Vietnam veterans made a promise. Never again will a generation of veterans turn their backs on the next generation of veterans. We succeeded in teaching America not to blame the warrior for the war. There are countless well-intentioned efforts to show our gratitude. Parades, fundraisers, concerts. We've taught veterans to surf, to ski, to ride horses, to raft rivers, to climb mountains, to paint, to sing, to act. We have neurofeedback and biofeedback. You know what is consistently useful? A safe place where they can talk and be with each other. Our programs to create housing, job training, placement are critical. But for those still burdened by their memories, it's hard to keep a family together. It's hard to keep a home. It's hard to keep a job. We were trained to suck it up, to drive on. We offer assistance, we don't ask for it. That is our culture. PTSD is somewhat like diabetes in this sense. It is a lifelong condition. We can regain some quality of life with therapy, with medication, with understanding, but we will always be vulnerable to a sound, to a smell, to a moment in our lives that reminds us of another moment when everything changed. I served as a military advisor in Vietnam in 1969. I commanded a 5-man team. Our job was to train and support a village of rice farmers in the Mekong Delta. People who wanted to raise their crops, raise their families, and worship their God. It was a dangerous mission, and one sunny afternoon I was critically wounded. After multiple surgeries and months of convalescence at Walter Reed, I slowly recovered physically. In the following years, I enjoyed some successes in acting, but the clock never stopped ticking. By 1980, I had slipped into depression, and I struggled for the next 8 years, until other veteran friends that valued me persuaded me to ask for help. I got very lucky again. In 1988, Dr. Vincent DeFazio gave me back my life. I talked about it with other veterans. I wrote about it. I've been medicated for the last 7 years. I enjoy quality of life, but I keep a watchful eye on my decisions every day. At this point, our children are coming home with issues, and we just don't have the resources to treat them all. We can diagnose them. We can compensate them. We can medicate them. That's not good enough. Dr. Judith Broder founded the Soldiers Project, a national network of caregivers that offers counseling to troubled veterans pro bono for free. I think of her with the same regard I hold for Mother Teresa. If there were 100 such programs, there would still probably be a shortfall. So many of our veterans live in small town and rural America, hours from a VA facility, if that facility has a program, if they have an opening on their lists. And consider this, I did very well for 10 years, in spite of my issues, and then I lost my way. Some of our veterans will do well for the next several years, until a loss or an accident or something else triggers a relapse. So this problem is not going away. We need our society to be healthy and purposeful. And veterans deserve that chance to live a life filled with satisfaction and love and joy. We have a lot of work to do. Now, I'm a layman. There are many better sources to eliminate this condition for you. So I ask you to take away from today these thoughts. I need to become better informed. I should become an advocate for veteran care. I should be willing to speak out and inform others who are less aware. I should vote consciously, to petition, to fulfill that promise on which the Veterans Administration was founded, to care for them who shall have borne the battle, and for their spouse and their orphan. To all my brothers and sisters in arms, welcome home.